Okay, so it looks like some folks have requested to join with their video and audio. Um, Perfect. Alina, thank you. You're the first one of the pack. And then I guess just it sounds like there was a little bit of background noise, so if people don't mind just keeping themselves on mute until they have a question, that would be great. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and kick this off. I just wanted to do just a quick background and a quick sharing with the team. I actually used to work with Nadine at IBM, so I'm really excited to be paired up with her. I think she is somebody that I have always had tremendous respect for, and I think everybody on the call can learn a lot from her. So I think we're going to have an awesome session. Just a quick background on myself. My name is Rebecca Young. I am currently a cloud solution architect with Microsoft. I focus on building cloud solutions, leveraging our AI technology for our partner channel. And I'm going to let the star of the show here give us a brief introduction on herself as well before we kick this off.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca, and hello, everybody. I wish I could see everybody like Alina, but thank you for joining, and please don't hesitate to ask any question. It will be my pleasure to answer any question. Right now, my current role is I'm a customer engineer at Google, specializing in data and AI. And so what it means is basically I'm a technical pre-sales meeting with customer and discussing what their current needs and challenges and proposing what capabilities of Google Cloud could help them solve their problem.
Thank you. So I have prepared some questions because I suspect if it's a data science conference, I'm sure there's a lot of introverts on the call, myself included, actually. So I'm always brutal about not actually participating in these, but I would really love it. It's, just for the shared learning, guys. If you guys do have any questions, even if you want to put in the river, I'd be happy to repeat them back to Nadine so she can answer any burning questions that you guys have. But I guess I did prepare some in advance. So I was hoping that for the first one, Nadine, you could just walk us through your career. I know we went through everything really fast in the last session. So if you could actually walk us through the different roles. I know you took on a bunch of responsibilities at IBM. I think that would be really interesting for everyone on the call.
Okay, yes. So I'm from Montreal originally, and I graduate in computer science. So, and that was about in the 96, 97. So at that point, if you were in IT, you could pretty much go anywhere you wanted in the world. So because I was so bad in English and I knew it was important to learn in English, so I actually moved to the US, and my initially it was only supposed to be for 6 months to learn English, and but I moved to work. I got a job offer as a C++ programmer at the US Census Bureau, and then basically I spent 10 years there, and I was kind of a programmer, an architect, and then I also did some role in sales. And actually when I moved back to Canada in 2007, I moved and joined IBM, and I started working on different type of a project, and but more and more, I don't know, I guess it just happened, like many of my projects were data and AI related, kind of detecting fraud and stuff like that, and it was very interesting. So it just happened that big organization like IBM and stuff like that, around 2015 they start aligning the different brands in some specialty like cloud, mobility, analytic, and stuff like that. And I requested to be aligned with the analytic pillar because that's where my interest was. So I got aligned into that pillar, and during that time I also became a manager for the analytic architect in Canada, as well as some of the data scientists. And actually, I requested the data scientists to be part of my team because I think it was very important, because the pure data scientists, they are very good, obviously, building models and stuff like that. But whenever they had real customer question related to integrating model into the enterprise, with the security concerns within the core system of the enterprise, stuff like that, sometimes they were like and they didn't really care, right? So having that merge of the team, with the architects that had that broader view of the ecosystem of the customer, and also the deep data scientists to really build the model, I think it was a perfect fit. So yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell, that's kind of my story and path to where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We actually have our first question in the river, so thank you very much for that. The question is, what kind of technology do you use at Google today?
Okay, so I mean, it's so a lot of them. I mean, like basically everything in. I mean, like the programming language is very much Python, but depending on the type of use case that we are trying to solve, like if it's a IoT type of use case, and so basically all the different type of capabilities that are related to acquiring the data, storing the data, preparing the data, and then analyzing the data as well. So I mean, it goes, like from from that kind of spectrum. Yeah.
Thank you. Gonna encourage, I'm gonna poke in the river a little bit more. I'd love some more questions, guys, but I'll just keep going back to mine. So I'll go back to the normal boring stuff. And if you guys want some really, juicy insights, you have to go to the river to ask some questions. So the next one I had here was, I feel like this is something we don't talk about enough in because I think we all get really excited about the technology, that we always focus on the technology. But in terms of like the human component and actually learning about people as well, what is something that you're really passionate about outside of work?
Okay, I mean, since forever, I mean, it's sport, team sport more particularly. And, and then now I realize actually I've been doing, team sports since I'm very young. Like, I guess I play soccer since I'm 6 years old. And now I have two daughters, 14 and 15. And I kind of, put them into a team sport as well, because I think it's very important in your career, because really at an early age, it really show you, like how to be a good team player, how to be a good loser sometime, and also how to wash, your dirty clothes into the family, and how to really, collaborate with different team members that have different, skills, or stuff like that. So I mean, I still really enjoy, like doing team sport, just because of the variety of people that we will meet, and the strengths and weaknesses of each, and how we can all work together towards the same goal. So that's one of the things that is good for me. And it also give you the opportunity to step away from work and all the stress of work.
Yeah, 100%. I actually learned something new about you today, and I hope I was hiding it well. I was kind of giggling to myself because I was not an athletic child, and in fact, I forced myself to go out for one of the sports teams when I was in high school just for the sake of getting some athletic activity, and I went out for rugby of all things. That's not something you just. Thankfully, I was a winger, and thankfully, I was very fast. So it was okay, but yeah, I'll leave the sports to you then. And if I have to put together a rugby team or a soccer team, I'll be knocking on your door. Um, and still looking for more questions. Okay, I'll keep going back to my list. So my next question for you is, and this might be a tough one, out of your entire career, could you tell us about your biggest highlight, and could you also tell us about your biggest lesson learned?
Yes, of course. And I think I'm lucky because well, look, think my biggest highlights and lesson learned that really happened early in my career. So when I was in at the university doing my computer science degree, we had to do two internship. So basically, obviously the different company posted the different internship available to the student, and then you could apply. And if you're lucky, you got the interview and stuff like that. And one of them was actually an internship, and that was in '96, internship to go to France, but it you had to do an assignment in Java. Okay, and back then, I mean, I think Java was just released in '96. So I mean, at school, I had just learned C, C++, and assembler and that type of things. But I had never traveled. I've never taken the plane when I was young and stuff like that, and I really wanted to go to France. So actually, it was only me and another person. I don't even know who was the other person, but I decided that I was going to learn Java because I wanted to go to France. And so I just, learned it, did the assignment, and, I got it. But so that was very good because it teach me, that I learned that, even if you don't know something, which, now we all know that nobody knows everything, but if you're, really motivated to learn it and do it, I mean, at the end of the day, all you can do is your best, and you will learn from it, or you will grow from it. So that was kind of my, I guess, one of the big achievement in my career that taught me that I could, if I really wanted, I could do it. And then like going to the States, what happened is when I came back from France, I really love like going away, and I really wanted to, I guess, go back to France. But at that point, there was not that many opportunity for what I was looking for, and I had that opportunity in the US. So since I didn't speak well in English, I said, okay, I'll go there because as well they pay more. But it just stepping away from your comfort zone. I mean, it's not easy, like I'm not saying that I was going there and everything was, always very happy. I mean, it was very stressful and stuff like that. But, if you want to do something, but you're just kind of scared a little bit and not sure, I think you should try it. I think you should try it because at the end of the day, even if you don't succeed, you will learn, you will grow, you will just become a better person, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have a specific, I guess, lesson learned that you could share with people, and just kind of the same thing where your thought process, what had happened and your lesson from that? I know there's an element of that in the first example as well, but that was really positive and happy because you traveled to France and then you got to travel to Florida. But in terms of just, something that maybe something that wasn't so great in your career, something that went sideways differently than how you expected, and how you were able to pick yourself up and how you learned from that.
I guess kind of a something that went well, or okay. So another, I mean, another thing, like if I talk about kind of the fraud related project that I got to do,
Mhm.
that was kind of a complex solution we had to solve with different kind of capabilities that was needed. I mean, we had to look at unstructured information as well as structure information, and also like identity, kind of resolution type of things. So basically, it was a project that many different skills or people was needed. And obviously, like, I mean, in our field, I mean, there's many type A personality as well. So I was kind of the one that was responsible for the, I guess, technical success of what was being proposed to the customer. So I mean, like there was, just like in sport, right? I mean, there was days where some of the team member were very stressed out and kind of abrupt, or not. So I think it's you just have to learn that every day, like somebody in the team has ups and down. And I guess the lesson learned from that big project that kind of helped me is that when you have a tight deadline, it's important that you have maybe a daily touch point or a regular touch point to make sure that the team is progressing together. Or if somebody is needs your help, or if you need help, then kind of the team can brainstorm with each other to make sure that things will progress well. And I think also that's a good lesson learned overall, right? If you are stuck in something, don't wait up to the deadline to let people know that you're stuck, because then it's your fault, right? It's your fault. Like, you need, when you're stuck at something and you have a deadline, you need to raise a flag, and then you will feel better, because it's not, people will appreciate the fact that you're raising the flag, and that they will work with you to find somebody that can help you to reach the deadline that you have. So that's also another good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I know this is your session. I'm just going to add to that to reinforce that, because
Yeah, yeah, please do.
I'm very much like that too, right? Where, and especially at the time that we worked together when we were both at IBM, I found that I was kind of the go-to person for data science. So um, for me, I just took on requests from everybody all the time. And then the funny thing is that actually a big difference in going to Microsoft is that, this type of technology has just exploded, right? It's just moving so fast now, and there's so many different components, and now there's an expectation to know about data engineering on top of all the models that we're using and being able to actually put it into deployment. And it's funny because it was the first time in my life that I found that I was actually getting overwhelmed, and I couldn't get everything done. Like I just virtually didn't have enough time in the day, and I mean evenings, weekends, I didn't have enough time. And I finally had to put my hand up and find people. So instead of getting a request, and if you didn't know something, I would normally go through the documentation. I go through the services on the cloud and try to sort through it myself to see if I could find the answer. And you just don't have time anymore, right? Because you're getting so many other requests. And so it was a big lesson for me too, that I finally said, okay, we've got a team of people. I've got my little piece here, and I've got some stretch assignments that I can start to expand on my tech knowledge. But also, if there's somebody who already knows, if they're a data engineer, just pull that person in. You can ask them for help, or let the people know in the project that you are struggling better for the outcome, for the team, for the customer, the partner that you're working with. And it was just a huge lesson that I had as well when I first went over to Microsoft, especially a couple of years ago. So I just wanted to reinforce that. And thank you, everybody. You guys have been listening. You've been putting some questions in the river. So I'm going to toss a few of these at you, Nadine. So the first one is, do you have any use cases at Google where you use Spark and from data frames to ML lib instead of TensorFlow, or Spark ML lib instead of TensorFlow? Yeah, like right to the chase, right? Like right in there.
Yeah. So actually, I just started at Google at the end of August. So pretty much almost 3 months. So I have been kind of in onboarding and learning different things. So at that, so as of now, I didn't get into that specific level of details. So I don't have on top of mind like a use case that is really aligned to what what is just asked. I don't know if Rebecca or other people on the line ran into some use case like that they could comment.
I do have some thoughts. I think I'm in a similar boat where we don't usually, so when you're working for these big tech companies, unless you're working with our ISV channel, the ISVs, I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but that's when you're working with the startups basically that are coming up with a product. So if you think about like a virtual assistant, for example, like you can build out a bot that actually has AI technology in it. I'm more on the side where, and I'm sure Nadine is going to be in the same boat, where when you're working for these big tech companies, typically we're working with the big enterprise customers, and they want the low hanging fruit. They want the easy use cases. So, because it's all based on ROI, right? So if you think about the banks with loans application models, for example, and I find that the data is very different. It's often very structured. It's a lot easier of a use case, right? Um, my understanding with TensorFlow is that it's mostly with deep learning libraries. So if you think about, self-driving vehicles, if you think about when you need to use neural networks, frankly, we also try to steer away from neural networks because they're harder to explain to our customers and our partners versus, using decision trees, for example. So that's, or even actually some variations of regression for that matter. I find that it's not as advanced as what people would often assume coming from these big tech companies, because it's all driven on the dollar as well. And outside of that, my only other comment would be that I'm finding that a lot of these open source communities, a lot of these libraries are becoming available across the board as well. So from my perspective, I don't really know why you would want to use TensorFlow, like, or why there would be a specific use case where you couldn't use other libraries. Those are my initial thoughts when I saw the question. I would also be happy to open this up if we've got any, heavy duty data scientists that are solving some pretty cool use cases around self-driving cars, for example. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? And Justin, I see that you just you popped on your webcam there, so thank you for that. What are your thoughts on that? Have you explored this yourself?
Yeah, so if can you hear me first?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, because like I did a bunch of training in Microsoft too, and like thinking about the use cases for different, like I work for clients, they're not as advanced as going into TensorFlow. And I like how Spark unifies everything from the data engineering part to AI. So I have reasons for why I prefer Spark. But Google created TensorFlow. So I'm wondering if they found ways to if they use TensorFlow, what did they use before that for the data engineering component, or to prepare that data for it to be used in TensorFlow. And I guessed it would have been Spark, and so I just wanted to learn more about what happens there.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Justin. So, and there's within Google, there's many different kind of team and stuff like that. So obviously, like we have a machine learning expert and also like people that are working on our different technologies like TensorFlow specifically, Kubernetes specifically, and all those different type of project or key capabilities. So I'm more I'm more kind of a technical pre-sale. So I don't like in my typical role, like I'm not in services either. So I don't have to build machine learning model or, to go to that level. Like I'm more like kind of interacting with customer and defining, what capabilities within Google Cloud they should be using. And then when we get into really like building or implementing a specific use case, and like selecting which framework and which libraries we have to select, and this will be really like the machine learning expert that are in services that will interact with the customer, and based on the specific problem and the specific data available and stuff like that, they will decide how to implement it. So good question, but unfortunately, I cannot answer your question specifically. I'm sorry about that.
But thank you for the question, Justin. I do have a few more here, and thanks, guys. I really appreciate the engagement. So we've got one from Alina here. Thank you. And the question for you, Nadine, is how much opportunity do you have to code and work on problems directly now compared to other points in your career? What trade-offs did you consider when changing roles? I think that's a great one. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so if so definitely, like each company have kind of different role in management, technical, sales, and channel, interaction with partners and stuff like that. So I mean, at the beginning of my career, maybe the first 10 years, this is when I did most of the coding. And then, like I kind of move into management and sales. And then, like when and right now, I'm a technical pre-sales. So the type of demonstration or coding I need to do, it's, kind of for in the context of a pre-sales demo, so it's never, like which, so it's kind of still high level. Like if you are interested into doing coding, then you will go into kind of a service implementation type of role. If it is kind of in a vendor type of company, but obviously if you get hired as an employee for a bank or for an insurance or any type of company, then like will be part of kind of the research or innovation or data scientist or programming type of role. Yeah. So so at the beginning of my career, then not so much, because we had kind of a switch where it was more kind of a configuration type of capability. But now, for the last 5 years, I will say that, the programming is back into the table. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So I have a question here about the hiring process at Google. So how long does the Google hiring process take? Heard a lot of stories around several rounds of interviews, and could you share your experience?
Yeah, so it's something. It's very long. Like it took me 2 months, and actually, like I had kind of a call that was kind of a pre-selection, and then somebody else that was also kind of just confirming, I guess, my pre-selection. And when they confirmed that I was a potential good candidate, then basically you have a three times 1 hour interview back to back. One of them is technical or role related, and for 1 hour. The second one, it will be leadership, and the third one will be Googleness. And what they mean by Googleness is, if you're a good team player, if you collaborate well with other, and they want to, they will put you into a situation where you have to describe how you will. So actually, so the technical one, I never. When it was over, I was like brain dead, and I was like depressed, because I felt like I'd never done I never felt so stupid of my life because there was many questions I could not answer. And but then I knew people at Google that kind of and I pinged them, right? I said, oh my god, it didn't go well, forget it. I mean, I'm not gonna have it. But then what happened is that they do it on purpose. They want to push you to the limit to know how you will react, like, because some people will apparently get upset, or they will kind of say bullshit things, right? They will just say whatever, something that's not true. Or some people that will just say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know, I think I will I will need to research that. So obviously the right answer to say is that, unfortunately, I don't know. I mean, I will need to spend some time reviewing, this specific question, which is okay, by the way, because even in real life, that's what will happen, right? If you are in a customer facing role, there will always be, like, question that customer will ask you that you're not gonna know, because it's just impossible to know everything in every specific context. So you just have to you take the question down, and then you follow back with the customer. But anyway, so I guess I despite the fact that I felt very bad, then I did well, because I just didn't get upset or didn't bullshit. I just said that I didn't know.
Thank you. And then so we have one more question here, and I think we'll be close to time, but I do have a couple more on my list here as well. So the next one is, what do you think about building and training models on your own, or implementing pre-built and pre-trained models for the problem, as my teacher focuses more on building and training our models? It's a good question.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, it's a good question. And so basically it all depends on value, right? I mean, like Google, IBM, Microsoft, like, those big vendors, they have, kind of those AI building blocks that we call, like, for example, speech to text, or natural language processing, or visual recognition. So I think, depending on your use case, and what we are seeing is that stuff like visual recognition or natural language processing, I mean, like, you should test it. And if it does well the job, and you only need to train with your specific type of data set, then that's the way you should go, right? Because I mean, like those big companies, I mean, they have like data scientists, huge amount of data scientists that are just kind of improving, building that model. And based on the huge amount of data that we are, collecting, we are just improving those models continuously. Right. So, I mean, for sure, those building blocks are not going to be perfect, because they are trained in some specific context with some specific type of data set. But typically, like, you can, train them with your specific data set to improve them to the level where it will make sense. So, I mean, what I've found is that typically, based on the use case, it might be a combination, right? It might be a combination that for some part of the process, you will use some of those pre-built model that you would have trained based on your specific data set. But then also maybe there's some specific, like, kind of use case where you will need data scientists to build, this business specific type of model, right? So, and I mean, like, typically in company, what I've seen is that the amount of data scientists that they have versus the work that they need to do, like, sorry, I
Noise
think
there. I just muted him. Sorry.
okay.
But Kushal, it looks like you joined our we can actually see you now. So did you have any follow-up questions to that, or can unmute you now? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's like, as a student in a postgrad, some teachers are like, you should use the pre-trained models from their experience, and some are more research-based teachers, so developing their own. So like, I want to work on image recognition project where I use Google OCR, like the service which is so through which my life can be very, very easy. But if I wanna train my own model, So my life is going to be hell because I don't have that amount of data. I can take a simple example. Actually, I want to go.
I cannot hear you very well. You're breaking up a lot, so I don't know. I don't know if there's stuff that you can close on your laptop to maybe have better network or.
I think if I
Um,
could give the Cole's notes, let me know if I'm capturing everything. But the high level view was that it sounds like you're taking a course right now where you're being taught how to complete or build these different models from scratch, and then it's difficult because there's issues with gathering appropriate data. Maybe there's missing data quality issues, and you're wondering if just kind of how that differs from the pre-built models and basically that we can leverage through APIs. Is that essentially it? Okay. Nadine, did you
Okay.
get all that?
kind of.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So first of all, those pre-built, kind of building block like speech to text, natural language, or like visual recognition. I mean, they are so easy to test. So for sure, like visual recognition, natural language, speech to text, all that. I mean, there's so many choices among the different vendors, and actually the quality of those models based on the vendors and based on the specific capability you're testing also vary. So I will say, and I will recommend that your first choice should be to test it, because you can easily test it, right, based on what you're trying to accomplish and see what's the results. So I think really, like, for those, you should just test it, see what you're getting, and also if you train it based on your data, because like you said, if you don't have huge amount of data available to you, it's just going to be even harder for you to build your own model. Yeah.
I'm just going to add to that as well, because we have some responses in the rigor and basically saying that it depends ultimately on the problem you're trying to solve. And I would 100% agree with that, especially because if you're taking this in school, I think the big purpose is to have you learn how to build this out yourself, right? There's a lot of value in understanding the stats behind it and how it's manipulating the data. And there are different ways. I mean, you can build data sets, you can build synthetic data sets. There's been a bunch of times that I've grabbed data from just available open data sources from the States. Frankly, I find that they're actually better and they have more open data platforms. Unfortunately, in Canada, I find that a lot of different companies will actually charge you for data access, right? So yeah, that would be my advice. But I think it's worth struggling through those problems because often, and also depending on the kind of job that you want after school, a lot of these employers will want you to build these out yourself from scratch. But ultimately, yeah, I just wanted to add my 2 cents in there, but really appreciate the engagement, guys, and Nadine, your answers as well. I do have a couple quick questions. Actually, I'll just stick with one because we've got 3 minutes. And then if anybody has any other questions, this is your last chance or forever hold your peace here. But my last question for you is, what book would you recommend, especially considering people that want to get into data science or even pursue leadership within data science, and why?
Okay, so and there's so many books, right? There are so many books, and it really depends on where you are, what which area you need to grow to get wherever you want to get. And actually, in my so I've read many books, because I've traveled a lot during my career, and whenever I traveled, and I didn't want to look at my screen, so I just bought books so I could read in the planes and stuff like that. But I think one that, and actually, like, just up to now, like, I will never read a book that was useless. And what I mean by useless is like fiction books, right? Because I always feel that we have so little times in a day to learn so many things we need to learn, that I always needed to read something that was useful for my life, right? But anyway, so my point is, there's one thing that I think is good if you're kind of at the beginning of your career, and one that I remember particularly is titled "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." Okay, and it's good because and it's stating the obvious in the sense that when you have kind of a field role, which is kind of building machine learning model or coding or anything, like you think that, you know, in order to progress in the organization, and when I say progress, it always depends what you want to be, right? I mean, you can be kind of a, you know, a leader of technical teams, so you will always be, you know, want to get the latest and greatest. But you know, from the moment that you start leading teams or progressing, you know, being a manager or an exec or whatever, like it requires different skills at the end of the day. I mean, and it's not so much about your technical skills anymore, and it's not so much about that little piece of the picture, you know, which you were doing about coding. It will be having that broader view of the end-to-end use case or end-to-end solution, integrating with the enterprise requirement like the security, the compliance, and stuff like that. So as you know, as you evolve, like depending on what you like, you will enjoy potentially seeing that broader picture, as well as the business, you know, picture in addition to the technical one. So I think that book is good because it's really, you know, kind of explain that, you know, as you progress in life or in your career, you know, you know, the skills that you got now is not the same skill that you will need in order to be able to progress.
And that's so true. Sorry, I was a little slow to get to my mute button there. We've got a little bit of a noisy house today, but no, I absolutely agree with that. And I think it's that's fantastic. I actually haven't heard of that book, so I think I'm gonna go and look that up myself. Seems very relevant for my life right now. So I'm like, oh, that's a good reminder. And I guess with that, guys, we are at time. So just want to, you know, thank Nadine again for all of your insights and for spending the time with us here today, and for everyone for your engagement in the call as well. We really enjoyed being a part of the session today. So looking forward to seeing you guys in some more future sessions throughout the expo.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I know it's a lot of virtual session those days, but thank you for attending. That was nice.
Thank you.
For sure. All right. Thanks, guys. At least we could see one person. Thank you, Alina. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon.